Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
That woman that you saw is Certi Cooks. She's an influencer, very popular on TikTok and social media, and she cooks and such. That's hence the name, Certi Cooks. And she has become the poster child for the Venezuelan trad wife. And that's, of course, what I use this video. Now, the video for today is what is the realistic expectation or probabilities of finding a Trotcon wife here in Venezuela. Well, Trotcon wife exists in Venezuela, and especially a beautiful one like Certi. Yes, they do. And it's impossible to get such wife, meet such women in Venezuela. It's impossible? No. Now, is realistic, is probabilistic? Well, it's not impossible, but it's very, very low. Let me explain. First, what is the background of the women that you find, there are Trotcon wife. Most of these kind of girls, and of course, most of them are on a high middle class or just straight up high class here in Venezuela. Usually old money, or they are descendants of people they were able to make money, their parents or their grandparents. They build generational wealth on the times that doing so in Venezuela was fairly easy. On the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, on a lesser degree on the early 2000s. Very good. Usually the economic profile is that. Usually they're in construction, or they are suppliers for the government, or retail. And usually, not all the times, but most of the time, they are descendants of migrants. Europeans, Italians, Spaniards, Portuguese on a lesser degree. Also, many Arab descendants, like Certi. She is Arab descendant, and I believe her husband is also Arab descendant. Both Venezuelans were Arab descendants. Many Arab descendants, I have to say. That regard, some Jewish. We don't have that much of a Jewish population, but some Jewish population as well. And these kind of women, what the background they have, of course, it was a very privileged background, especially here in Venezuela. Although at some point, the average Venezuelan have a very good standard of living. That's not the case at all today. So, what we have is a privileged child. Women, every woman is solipsistic, so they don't see the world as it is, just the small perception of their bubble, of the immediate social milieu. Probably the case on Certi. I don't know her in person, so I wouldn't say, but most likely it's the case. So these kind of women, of course, they mingle with other privileged childs, of course, privileged men that have a similar background. It's not always the case, but most likely is gonna be the case. So what they do, and that goes especially on the Arab community, that they are very strict with their social norms, social rules. Also, they have like a milieu by themselves, so they don't interact that much with the rest of the Venezuelan population. And of course, same thing with Italians and such. So they are in a privileged background. And also, I have to put this into context. When a family here in Venezuela makes, let's say, just $1 or $2 million per year, that's actually in the United States is very hard to accomplish, I have to say, but in Venezuela it's nearly impossible. let's say, it's impossible, especially on doing it legally. And the people and the families that do it legally, they get this status like let's say a Kennedy, the Kennedys or the Bushes on the United States, the Rothschild, the Vanderbilts. I don't know, the Vanderbilts are broke, but you get the idea. So the status goes way beyond their wealth, and usually they mingle with some other of these people, other privileged background people, and that's when they made together and they got married and such. And all these circles, especially on the ones that are Arab descendants, also I have to say that we have most of the Arabs here are Christian Arabs. And well, on the case of Surti, I believe she's a Muslim. Muslims are a minority within the Arab population. But still, when you come to Venezuela, you're going to see a bunch of Arabs. Anyway, so what happened with these people is that they mingle all the time. They go to the private clubs or the fancy restaurants, but also restaurants that are catered towards them. This goes not only for Arabs, but also goes for Italian descendants and business people. Of course, you have Venezuelans. I mean, they're not descendants of anybody. They're just Venezuelans. They also are on that note. But the cliche here in the country is they're usually Italian descendants, European descendants, Italian descendants, or Arab descendants most of the time. So what happens? Eventually, they meet when they are on the teenage years or they are young adults. They meet someone with a similar background. Usually a young guy, usually very attractive, a chat-looking young man that, of course, is also a descendant of Italians or Arabs or whatever. And, of course, her mom is beautiful, her dad is successful, and, I mean, the guy is very good looking, and also with some principles. Now, but to paint the picture, this man will be a blue pill man, so a man who believes, oh, women are good, and so on and so on. So a guy is kind of dumb because, I mean, he had everything in life because, I mean, he had a privileged background, also usually very good looking guy, a fuckboy. And what happens is these men, they got everything easy in life, including women, so they don't see the true nature of women. And when they hook up with these kind of women, they live in the bubble as well. They are solipsistic, just as women. So what happens is eventually they have beautiful kids, and because they have on a privileged background, the guy usually takes part on the business of the family and so on and so on. I mean, this story is replicated in Venezuela. Is kind of particular. Happens after that is that they have children and so on and so on and so on. So that's the story. That's how a trat wife exists in Venezuela, usually by wealth. Now, can you find a Trotcon wife on, let's say, lower middle classes? It's not impossible, but it's improbable. Here's why. Because on this world, what you can see is a lot of struggle on lower middle class families, and usually, many times, not all the times, raised by single mothers and so on and so on. So these women won't have the discipline in order to be a good wife and such. It will be just a basic bit. And it's very unlikely, it's not impossible, but it's very unlikely to find a very good Trotcon traditional wife. You can find a good Venezuelan wife on any social class, but what the most important thing that you have to look is she's not tainted by drama. That's a very important thing. Parents, they were drug addicts or they had bad habits and so on and so on. So you have to do your screening. So it's not impossible, but it's very unlikely. So that's the story. If you want to find a certain cooks here in Venezuela, well, if you're an Arab descendant, you actually have a shot, unless if you are a fairly young man, you have to integrate to particular social circles here in Venezuela. And after that, maybe mingle, start getting to know people, and you can get reasonable options and so on for a Trotcon wife. For the rest, it's just, be wise, be smart, use your wisdom, do some networking, and of course, do your thing, and it's gonna be a hit and miss situation. So,
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.